The great crystal spires of Kiros Prime stretched toward the twin suns like frozen lightning. Deep within the largest tower, the Zephyrian High Council gathered for their monthly meeting. The chamber walls sparkled with embedded gems that recorded their civilization's history and patterns of light. Elder Vexani stood before the assembled council members. Her crystalline form caught the light and scattered it in rainbow patterns across the smooth floor. She was old even by Zephyrian standards, and her knowledge of ancient galactic history was respected throughout their peaceful confederation. Today, we discuss the preservation of mythological records, she announced, her voice ringing like wind chimes in the vast chamber. As we expand our territory into the outer spiral arms, we must remember the lessons of extinct civilizations. The other council members settled into their viewing positions. Their species had evolved from living crystals, and they absorbed information through light patterns rather than sound. But for formal meetings, they maintained the old traditions of spoken word. "Tell us about the humans," requested Councillor Kethra, a younger member whose curiosity often led the discussions in new directions. The archaeological teams found more ruins in Sector 7841. The dating suggests they existed much longer than we previously thought. Elder Vexani's form brightened with what humans might have recognized as a smile. The humans. Perhaps the most interesting of all the extinct species. According to our archives, they called themselves Homo sapiens and originated from a small blue world they named Earth or Terra. She activated the chamber's central display, showing a holographic map of the galaxy, a small section in the outer rim highlighted in soft blue light. They lived here, in what we now call the Terran sector, a region we have marked as archaeologically interesting but otherwise empty. The humans supposedly destroyed themselves approximately 3,000 standard years ago, through warfare and environmental destruction. "What made them different from other extinct species?" asked another counselor. "Everything," Vexani replied. "Most species that go extinct do so because they cannot adapt. They become too specialized, too peaceful, or too aggressive. But humans were different. They were adaptable beyond reason." The display changed, showing artistic reconstructions of human settlements on various worlds. The images came from ancient ruins and broken databases found throughout the sector. They could live almost anywhere. Desert worlds, ice planets, high-gravity environments, low-oxygen atmospheres. Other species needed extensive terraforming or environmental suits. Humans just adapted. They changed their technology, their living spaces, sometimes even their own bodies. Councillor Yilshen, the council's military advisor, made a sound like crystal chimes clashing together. In Zephyrian culture, this indicated skepticism. "Surely these are exaggerations," he said. "The records from that era are fragmentary at best. Mythology often grows in the telling." "Perhaps," Vexani agreed, "but the archaeological evidence supports some remarkable claims. We found human settlements on worlds where the surface temperature reached levels that would melt most metals. We found others in systems where the radiation should have been lethal to any organic life." She changed the display again, showing weapon fragments and military installations. "Then there are the war records. According to the fragments we have translated, humans fought a massive conflict against some kind of artificial intelligence. The few readable battle reports describe tactics and strategies that seem impossible." "Impossible how?" Kethra leaned forward, her crystal form focusing more light on the display. "They never surrendered. Ever. We found records of human military units that continued fighting even when outnumbered 1,000 to 1. They used their own ships as weapons, turning retreat into attack. They fought with a desperation and creativity that other species found disturbing." Vexani paused, letting the information settle among the council members. One particular report describes a human fleet that was completely surrounded by enemy forces. Instead of surrendering, they detonated their own reactors and used the explosion to damage the enemy ships. The tactic was so unexpected that it worked. "Barbaric," muttered Councillor Delshen. "No wonder they went extinct." "But effective," Yilshen admitted reluctantly. "From a military perspective, unpredictability is a powerful weapon. If your enemies cannot predict your actions, they cannot prepare proper defenses." Vexani nodded. "Exactly. Humans seem to specialize in doing the unexpected. They turned weakness into strength, defeat into victory. Some records suggest they even use their own primitive nature as a tactical advantage." "How so?" asked Kethra. Other species at the time had developed advanced artificial intelligences to help with military planning. These AIs could predict most tactical decisions with high accuracy. But human decisions often seemed random or illogical to artificial minds. Human commanders would make choices based on intuition, emotion, or pure stubbornness rather than logical analysis. The council chamber fell quiet, except for the soft humming of the recording crystals. Each member processed this information in their own way. What happened to them? Delshin finally asked. If they were so adaptable and unpredictable, how did they go extinct? Vexani dimmed her form slightly, a sign of uncertainty among her people. The records are unclear. The war against the artificial intelligence lasted for centuries. We know that toward the end, human territories went silent. No more transmissions, no more ship movements, no more expansion. Most scholars believe they finally exhausted themselves. Even the most adaptable species has limits. Or perhaps they were simply overwhelmed, suggested Yilshin. Numbers eventually win regardless of creativity. Perhaps, Vexani repeated, though some of the final transmissions we have managed to decode are strange. Strange how? They speak of something called Protocol Lazarus. We have not been able to determine what this means. The translation software suggests it refers to some kind of resurrection or return from death. But the context makes no sense. Counselor Kethra flickered with curiosity. Could it have been some kind of survival plan? Possibly. But if so, it appears to have failed. The Terran sector has remained silent for 3 millennia. Our deep space surveys show no signs of human presence, only ruins and dead worlds. Elder Vexani moved to the center of the chamber, her form casting light patterns on the walls. This is why we study these extinct civilizations, she explained. Not to glorify violence or mourn the past, but to understand the dangers of unchecked aggression and environmental destruction. Humans serve as a perfect example of a species that had great potential, but destroyed itself through its own nature. What lesson should we take from their story? Asked Delshin. That adaptation and survival are not enough, Vexani replied. A species must also have wisdom. Humans could survive anywhere and fight anyone, but they apparently could not survive themselves. They were too aggressive, too quick to choose violence over diplomacy. The other council members absorbed this wisdom. The Zephyrian civilization had prospered for millennia through peaceful cooperation and careful environmental management. They had no standing military beyond basic defense forces and had never fought a war of conquest. We will continue the archaeological surveys, Vexani concluded. Human ruins contain valuable technological information, even if their creators are long dead. But we must remember that they are exactly that, ruins of a failed civilization, a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked human nature. The council meeting moved on to other topics, but the discussion of humans lingered in their thoughts. None of them noticed the small monitoring device hidden in the chamber's crystal matrix. None of them realized that their words were being recorded and transmitted across vast distances. In the darkness between stars, ancient systems received the transmission and filed it with millions of others. The Watchers had been listening for a very long time, and they were almost ready to speak. Captain Yilshin of the research vessel Harmonious Discovery floated in his command chamber, reviewing the quarterly mining reports from the outer territories. The Zephyrian Confederation had been expanding slowly but steadily, establishing resource extraction operations in previously unexplored systems. Most of the work was routine. Asteroid mining, gas giant atmospheric processing, and the occasional archaeological survey of dead worlds. The Terran sector had proven particularly rich in rare minerals, probably because no one had bothered to mine it thoroughly before. Captain, called his communications officer, Silnith, we are receiving an unusual transmission from mining platform 77 Alpha. Yilshin shifted his crystalline form to focus on the communications array. What kind of transmission? They report detecting an ancient distress signal, very faint, but repeating on multiple frequencies. The signature does not match any known Confederation technology. Pirates? Yilshin asked. It was always a possibility in the outer territories, though rare. Negative, sir. The signal appears to be very old. The modulation patterns suggest it has been broadcasting for centuries, possibly millennia. Mining platform requests permission to investigate. Yilshin considered this. Ancient technology could be valuable, both scientifically and economically. The Confederation's museums paid well for intact artifacts from extinct civilizations. Transmit coordinates to my navigation system, he decided. Tell mining platform 77 Alpha to maintain safe distance. We will investigate personally. The Harmonious Discovery was well equipped for archaeological work. As one of the Confederation's primary research vessels, it carried advanced sensors, translation computers, and a full team of xenoarchaeologists. If there was something interesting to find, they would find it. 2 days later, they arrived at the coordinates. The system was typical for the Terran sector, a dim red star with several dead rocky planets. According to the survey records, it had been checked for resources but found mostly empty. Signal strength increasing, reported Silneth. Source appears to be artificial structure in orbit around the third planet. Yilshen activated the ship's main view screen. At first he saw nothing but empty space. Then the computer enhanced the image and a massive shape became visible against the star field. By the 7 crystals, breathed Dr. Morthek, the ship's chief archaeologist. That is enormous. The structure was indeed massive, easily 10 times larger than the Harmonious Discovery. It appeared to be some kind of space station, though its design was unlike anything in the Confederation databases. The hull was dark and angular, covered in what looked like armor plating and weapon mounts. Scanning for life signs, announced Silneth. Negative on active life forms. The structure appears to be powered down, but I am detecting minimal energy signatures from several sections. Any idea who built it? Yilshen asked. Dr. Morthek adjusted his sensors, focusing on the station's construction details. After several minutes, his form brightened with excitement. Captain, the architectural style matches theoretical reconstructions of human military installations. This could be an actual human space station. Yilshen felt a surge of interest. Elder Vexani's recent presentation about extinct civilizations had made human artifacts particularly valuable. A genuine human military station would be the archaeological find of the century. Begin detailed scans, he ordered. I want to know everything about that structure before we get closer. The survey took several hours. The station was even more impressive up close than it had appeared from a distance. The design showed clear signs of advanced engineering, with multiple docking bays, defensive positions, and what appeared to be massive manufacturing facilities. I am detecting the source of the distress signal, Silneth reported. It appears to originate from the station's central command section. Any signs of damage or combat? Yilshen asked. Negative, sir. The station appears intact. I am detecting some kind of automated system still functioning at minimal power levels. Dr. Morthek consulted his historical databases. According to our records, human space stations were designed to operate independently for extended periods. It is possible this facility has been maintaining itself automatically for centuries. Recommendations? Yilshen asked his senior staff. We should dock and investigate, Dr. Morthek said immediately. This could provide unprecedented insight into human technology and culture. The security chief, Kolvash, was more cautious. Unknown automated systems could be dangerous. We should conduct remote surveys first. Yilshen considered both positions. The potential scientific value was enormous, but safety had to come first. Compromise solution, he decided. We will approach carefully and attempt to establish communication with the station's automated systems. If they respond peacefully, we will consider boarding. The Harmonious Discovery moved slowly toward the ancient station. As they drew closer, the structure seemed to come alive. Running lights began activating along the hull, and several sections that had appeared dormant started showing power signatures. Captain, Silneth called urgently. The station is responding to our presence. I am detecting massive power increases throughout the structure. Weapons? Kolvash asked, his form flickering with alarm. Unknown. The power signatures are unlike anything in our databases. Suddenly, the communications array crackled with incoming transmissions. The signal was clear and strong, broadcast on multiple frequencies simultaneously. Unidentified vessel. The transmission began in perfect Zephyrian standard. You are approaching a restricted military installation. State your identity and purpose. The bridge fell silent. The voice was artificial, clearly generated by some kind of computer system, but it spoke their language flawlessly. How does it know our language? Dr. Morthek whispered. Yilshen activated the ship's communication system. This is Captain Yilshen of the Zephyrian Confederation research vessel, Harmonious Discovery. We detected your distress signal and came to investigate. Are you in need of assistance? There was a long pause. When the response came, it carried a different tone. Zephyrian Confederation confirmed in database. Research vessel classification confirmed. You are investigating a distress signal? Yes, we detected an automated transmission from this location. Our sensors indicated the signal was very old. Another pause, longer this time. Distress signal was not directed at Zephyrian vessels. Signal was emergency activation code. You have triggered Protocol Lazarus. Dr. Morthek's form brightened with excitement. Protocol Lazarus that was mentioned in Elder Vexani's presentation. The humans' final transmission before they went extinct. The station's voice continued. Emergency activation confirmed. Beginning system restart procedures. Transmitting awakening signal to all monitoring stations. Wait, Yilshin called. What awakening signal? What monitoring stations? Please stand by. This message will repeat on all frequencies. Terra remembers.
Terra endures.
Terra returns. The transmission shifted to what sounded like dozens of different languages, repeating the same message over and over. Some of the languages were recognizable: Altarian, Vegan, Centaurian. Others were completely unknown. Captain, Silneth reported with growing alarm, the signal is being broadcast on subspace frequencies. It will reach across multiple sectors. Can we stop it? Negative. The transmission power is beyond our ability to jam. Dr. Morthek was frantically consulting his databases. Captain, I do not think this station is as abandoned as we thought. The automated systems are far too sophisticated. And that message, Terra, was the human name for their homeworld. Yilshin stared at the ancient station as more and more systems came online. Entire sections that had been dark for centuries were now blazing with light and activity. Silneth, send an immediate report to Confederation Command. Tell them we may have found something more significant than expected. What should I tell them we found? Silneth asked. Yilshin watched as the station's massive communications array extended and began broadcasting the awakening signal toward distant stars. Tell them we found a human military installation, and it is not as dead as we thought. The message continued to repeat across the galaxy, reaching destinations that had been silent for 3,000 years. In hidden bases and concealed colonies, ancient systems began to wake up. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, humanity was stirring. The archaeological expedition had become something else entirely. They had not found ruins of an extinct civilization. They had found a sleeping giant, and they had just woken it up. Admiral Sarah Chen was reviewing supply reports in her private quarters aboard the flagship Indomitable when the awakening signal reached the Centauri Naval Yards, the massive space station had been her home for the past 15 years, hidden in the shadow of Proxima Centauri, where no curious aliens would think to look. The alarm that interrupted her paperwork was one she had never heard before. Not a combat alert or system malfunction, but the deep, resonating tone that meant only one thing. Protocol Lazarus had been activated. She was moving before the sound finished echoing through the station corridors. 15 years of military discipline kicked in automatically as she made her way to the command center. Around her, other officers were responding with the same urgent efficiency. Report, she called as she entered the Strategic Operations Center. Commander Torres looked up from his console, his face showing a mixture of excitement and disbelief. Admiral, we are receiving the activation signal from monitoring station Echo 7 in the Terran sector. The message is confirmed authentic. How long since the signal was sent? Approximately 18 hours ago. The transmission is being repeated on all emergency frequencies. Admiral Chen felt a strange sensation in her chest. She had trained for this moment her entire career, but she had never really believed it would happen. None of them had. Status of fleet assets? All ships are responding to the awakening protocol, Torres reported. Hibernation systems are cycling down across the fleet. Crew members are being revived from extended sleep. We should have full operational status within 72 hours. And the other naval yards? Vega Station reports ready status in 60 hours. The Luna yards will need additional time. Some of their older ships require manual restart procedures. Seoul Defense Command is already fully operational. Admiral Chen moved to the main display screen, which showed a tactical map of human space. Red lights indicated fleet positions. Green showed supply depots and civilian colonies. Blue marked monitoring stations. For 3,000 years, this map had been empty. All systems running silent. All transmissions minimized. All ships hidden. Now the lights were coming back on. "What triggered the activation?" she asked. Commander Torres consulted his datapad. "Monitoring Station Echo 7 detected alien contact with one of our derelict facilities. A Zephyrian research vessel investigating what they thought was an archaeological site." Zephyrians? Admiral Chen accessed her memory implants, calling up files on known alien species. Crystalline beings, peaceful confederation, no significant military assets. They have been expanding into the outer territories for several decades. Yes, ma'am. They apparently triggered the automated systems at Station Echo 7 while investigating what they thought was a distress signal. Admiral Chen almost smiled. The irony was perfect. Humanity's return to the galaxy had been triggered by aliens who thought humans were extinct mythology. "Orders from Fleet Command?" she asked. "Admiral Harrison sends his compliments and requests immediate conference with all sector commanders. The meeting is scheduled for 1400 hours, Sol Standard Time." "Understood. What is our current operational capacity?" Torres pulled up detailed reports from across the station. The Centauri yards currently house 47 capital ships, 136 cruisers, and approximately 400 smaller vessels. All have been maintained in ready status throughout the silence period. "We can have the entire fleet operational within the 72-hour window." Admiral Chen nodded with satisfaction. 3,000 years of preparation had not been wasted. Humanity had used their time in hiding well. "Begin general awakening procedures," she ordered. "All personnel to be revived and briefed within 48 hours. I want department heads reporting fleet status every 6 hours." "Yes, ma'am." "Admiral, what should we tell the crew about the situation?" Admiral Chen considered the question. Most of the personnel had been in extended hibernation for decades. They would wake up to a galaxy that had changed significantly since they last saw it. Tell them the truth, she decided. The waiting is over. Humanity is going home. As Torres began implementing her orders, Admiral Chen made her way to the station's observation deck. Through the reinforced windows, she could see the fleet beginning to wake up. Ship after ship was showing lights as their crews revived and their systems came online. The ships themselves were impressive. 3,000 years of focused military development had produced vessels that would have seemed impossible to their ancestors. The Indomitable alone was larger than most alien space stations, armed with weapons that could crack planets and protected by shields that could absorb star-level energy output. But it was not just the technology that made humanity dangerous. It was what they had learned during their long silence. Admiral Chen accessed her command implants and reviewed the intelligence reports that had been accumulating for centuries. Humanity had not simply hidden during their exile. They had watched. They had listened. They had learned everything there was to know about the species that now dominated the galaxy. The Zephyrian Confederation was peaceful, but naive. They had no concept of true warfare, and their military consisted mainly of lightly armed patrol vessels. The Altarian Republic was more militaristic but focused on defending their core worlds rather than projecting power. The Vegan Empire had impressive numbers but relied on outdated tactics that assumed their enemies would fight conventionally. None of them had ever faced an opponent like humanity. "Admiral," Commander Torres called from across the observation deck. "Priority transmission from Fleet Command." Admiral Chen activated her personal communicator. Admiral Harrison's voice crackled through the connection. "Sarah, good to hear your voice again. I trust your people are ready for deployment?" "As ready as we can be, sir." "What are our orders?" "Phase 1 of the return protocol. We make contact with the species that found us. Demonstrate our capabilities without causing unnecessary casualties. Show them that humanity is back and that we are not the same species that went into hiding. Rules of engagement? Defensive posture only, but make sure they understand what defensive means when it comes to human military doctrine. If they threaten any human assets or personnel, you are authorized to respond with overwhelming force." Admiral Chen felt the familiar weight of command responsibility settling on her shoulders. "Understood, sir." "Target selection?" "The Zephyrian homeworld. Kairos Prime. Intelligence suggests their High Council is meeting an emergency session to discuss the implications of finding our monitoring station. Perfect timing for a formal introduction. Fleet composition. Take everything you have. 47 capital ships should be sufficient to make the point without appearing overtly threatening." Admiral Chen almost laughed. 47 human capital ships appearing over an alien homeworld would be about as threatening as it was possible to be, without actually opening fire. Transit time? 16 hours at maximum sustainable velocity. Try to arrive during their local daytime. We want them to see us coming. Any special instructions? Remember, Sarah, we are not conquerors. We are survivors returning home. These aliens have been living in what we consider our territory for 3,000 years. We need to establish that this is our space, but we do not need to exterminate them to do it. Understood, sir. We will make them an offer they cannot refuse. Good hunting, Admiral. Harrison out. Admiral Chen closed the communication channel and returned to the command center. Around her, the station was coming fully alive as thousands of personnel completed their revival procedures. Commander Torres, set condition yellow throughout the fleet. All ships to prepare for immediate deployment. Yes, ma'am. Destination? Zephyrian space. Kairos Prime. It seems we have a diplomatic appointment to keep. Torres began issuing orders to the fleet. Admiral Chen watched as her ships began moving into formation. Each vessel was a masterpiece of human engineering, designed by people who had spent centuries thinking about nothing but warfare and survival. The Zephyrians thought humans were extinct. They thought humanity was a cautionary tale about the dangers of aggression and environmental destruction. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Humanity had not destroyed itself. It had simply been sleeping, and now it was time to wake up the galaxy. The first sign that something was wrong came from the automated monitoring stations around Kairos Prime. Deep space sensors detected gravity, fluctuations consistent with multiple large vessels, dropping out of faster than light. Travel at the edge of the system. Defense Coordinator Zalneth was reviewing routine patrol schedules when the alerts began cascading across his displays. One contact became 5, then 10, then 20. The numbers kept climbing until his sensors registered 47 distinct signatures. By the 7 crystals, he whispered, his crystalline form flickering with alarm. Get me the High Council immediately. Elder Vexani was in her private chambers, still processing the disturbing reports from Captain Yilshin's expedition when the emergency communication reached her. The message was brief but terrifying. An unknown fleet of massive warships had appeared in Zephyrian space and was heading directly for their homeworld. The emergency session of the High Council convened within minutes. Every member materialized in the Great Chamber, their forms bright with stress and confusion. Report, Elder Vexani commanded as she took her position at the center of the assembly. Defense Coordinator Zalneth activated the main display, showing the tactical situation. 47 red contacts were arranged in perfect formation, moving toward Kairos Prime with methodical precision. Unknown fleet detected at 0847 hours local time, he reported. 47 vessels, all significantly larger than our heaviest cruisers. They are maintaining standard approach vectors and have not responded to our communication attempts. Counselor Kethra's form pulsed with nervous energy. Could they be pirates? Some kind of raiding force? Negative, Zalneth replied. The formation is too precise, too military. This is a formal fleet deployment, not a raid. What about their ship designs? Asked Yilshen, who had arrived directly from his own vessel still in orbit. Do they match any known species? Zalneth adjusted the display to show detailed scans of the approaching ships. The vessels were unlike anything in the Confederation databases, angular, heavily armed, and built for war. Unknown configuration, he admitted. But there are some similarities to theoretical reconstructions of ancient military vessels found in archaeological sites. Elder Vexani felt a cold sensation spreading through her crystalline matrix. What kind of archaeological sites? Human sites, Zalneth said quietly. The chamber fell silent except for the soft humming of the recording crystals. Every council member understood the implications immediately. Impossible, breathed Counselor Delshin. Humans have been extinct for 3,000 years. The evidence suggests otherwise, Yilshen said grimly. The space station we discovered was far from dead. Its automated systems were sophisticated beyond anything we have seen from other extinct civilizations. Elder Vexani accessed her memory files, reviewing everything she knew about human military doctrine. The ancient records painted a picture of a species that fought with desperate creativity and never surrendered. Defensive options? She asked. Zalneth's form dimmed with embarrassment. Limited. Our defense fleet consists of 12 patrol cruisers and 46 system defense platforms. They were designed to handle pirates and minor incursions, not a full military fleet. Could we evacuate the population? Not in time. The approaching fleet will reach orbital range in 6 hours. We could evacuate perhaps 10% of the population in that time frame. Counselor Yil Shen stepped forward. Perhaps they do not intend to attack. They have made no hostile moves beyond simply appearing in our space. 47 warships is a hostile move, Del Shen replied acidly. Elder Vexani made a decision. Open all communication channels. Broadcast on every frequency. If these are humans, they have been monitoring us long enough to learn our language. The communication array transmitted across the entire system. Elder Vexani herself spoke the message. Unknown fleet, this is Elder Vexani of the Zephyrian High Council. You are approaching our homeworld with what appears to be a military force. We request immediate communication to discuss your intentions. The response came within minutes, broadcast on perfect Zephyrian standard with an accent that somehow managed to sound both polite and threatening. Elder Vexani, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force. We are responding to your recent contact with one of our monitoring installations. We request immediate diplomatic discussion regarding territorial boundaries and the future of Zephyrian expansion into human space. The council chamber erupted in startled chimes and light patterns. Human space? Territorial boundaries? The implications were staggering. Admiral Chen, Elder Vexani replied carefully. We were not aware that humans still existed. Our records indicate your species went extinct approximately 3,000 years ago. There was a pause before Admiral Chen responded. When she spoke again, there was something that might have been amusement in her voice. Reports of our extinction have been greatly exaggerated. Elder, we have been watching your civilization's development with interest. Your expansion into what we consider the Terran sector has reached a point where formal contact became necessary. You have been watching us for centuries. Your species is peaceful and generally benevolent, which is why this conversation is taking place instead of a more direct demonstration of human capabilities. Counselor Del Shen stepped forward. Are you threatening us? I am explaining our position, Admiral Chen replied calmly. Humanity went into strategic hibernation 3,000 years ago after a devastating war. We have spent that time rebuilding, adapting, and preparing for our return to galactic civilization. The Terran sector belongs to humanity. Your presence there without permission constitutes territorial violation. Elder Vexani felt the weight of history pressing down on her. Every myth and legend about human aggression suddenly seemed far more real. What do you want from us? She asked. Formal recognition of human sovereignty over our traditional territories. Immediate withdrawal of Zephyrian forces from the Terran sector. Establishment of proper diplomatic relations between our species. And if we refuse? The pause was longer this time. When Admiral Chen spoke again, her voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. Elder Vexani, I am currently commanding 47 capital ships, each one capable of reducing your homeworld to molten slag within minutes. This represents approximately 1% of current human military capacity. We do not wish to harm your people, but we will not tolerate continued violation of human territory. Zalneth was frantically working at his tactical displays. Elder, he whispered urgently. Their weapon signatures are beyond our ability to counter. A single one of their ships could destroy our entire defense fleet. Elder Vexani looked around the council chamber. Every member was focused on her, waiting for her decision. The choice was simple: diplomacy or destruction. Admiral Chen, we accept your request for formal diplomatic discussion. However, we need time to consult with our various member worlds and establish proper negotiating parameters. Understood. We will maintain our current position while you deliberate. However, I should mention that our patience, while considerable, is not infinite. I would recommend expediting your decision-making process. How long are you willing to wait? 72 hours should be sufficient for initial discussions. After that time, we will need to reassess our position. Elder Vexani understood the subtext perfectly. 72 hours to accept human terms or face the consequences. We will have an answer within that time frame, she promised. Excellent. We look forward to productive negotiations. Chen out! The communication channel closed, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. Outside, 47 human warships maintained perfect formation in orbit around their homeworld. Elder Vexani activated the emergency protocols, sending urgent messages to every member world of the Confederation. The galaxy had just become a very different place. Humanity was back, and they were not the extinct mythology that Zephyrian scholars had described. They were very much alive, very well armed, and very interested in reclaiming their place in the galaxy. The legends had been true after all. The emergency session had lasted 68 hours. Representatives from every member world of the Zephyrian Confederation had participated through quantum communication links, debating options that ranged from complete surrender to desperate resistance. In the end, practicality won over pride. Elder Vexani stood before the assembled High Council, her crystalline form dimmed with exhaustion. Above their homeworld, 47 human warships waited with the patience of predators. "The vote is concluded," she announced. "By a margin of 712 to 43, the Confederation accepts the human terms for diplomatic negotiation." Councillor Delshen flickered with residual defiance. "We are surrendering to an extinct species that should not even exist. We are choosing survival over destruction," Elder Vexani corrected. "The humans have demonstrated overwhelming military superiority. Resistance would be suicide." She activated the communication array that had become the most important piece of technology in Zephyrian space. "Admiral Chen, this is Elder Vexani. The Zephyrian Confederation accepts your terms for formal diplomatic negotiation. We are prepared to discuss territorial boundaries and the establishment of proper relations between our species." The response came immediately, as if Admiral Chen had been waiting by her communications console. "Excellent news. Elder, I am transmitting coordinates for a neutral meeting location. We have prepared a suitable diplomatic facility aboard the Station Harmony, which has been positioned at the edge of your system." Station Harmony? A diplomatic vessel designed specifically for interspecies negotiation. It has been equipped with appropriate environmental controls for your species' comfort. Elder Vexani felt a chill at the implications. The humans had not only predicted this outcome, they had prepared for it in advance. How long had they been planning humanity's return? "We will dispatch our diplomatic team immediately," she replied. "One moment, Elder. Before we begin formal negotiations, there are several things you should understand about the current galactic situation, such as, humanity's return is not limited to the Zephyrian Confederation. Similar diplomatic missions are currently being conducted with 17 other species across the galaxy. You are not the only civilization that has been expanding into human territory during our absence." The council chamber erupted in shocked chimes and light patterns. 17 other species? How large was human territory? "Admiral," Elder Vexani said carefully, "exactly how much territory does humanity claim?" "Approximately 30% of the galaxy, Elder. Everything within 50 light-years of Sol, plus established colonies throughout the spiral arms. Most of what your species considers unexplored space has actually been human territory for millennia." Councillor Kethra stepped forward. "But our astronomical surveys show no signs of human presence in those regions." Admiral Chen's response carried a note of what might have been pride. That was rather the point. Humanity has spent 3,000 years perfecting the art of remaining undetected. Every inhabited system you have surveyed contains at least one hidden human installation. The implications were staggering. Humanity had not simply survived their supposed extinction. They had been actively monitoring galactic civilization for centuries. "Why reveal yourselves now?" Elder Vexani asked. "Because our strategic hibernation period is complete. Humanity is ready to resume our place in galactic civilization. The species that have expanded into our territory during our absence will need to make accommodation for our return. And if they refuse, then they will discover why humanity survived when so many other species did not." Elder Vexani understood the threat perfectly. She also understood that resistance was futile. 3 hours later, she found herself aboard the human diplomatic station, accompanied by the Confederation's most experienced negotiators. The station itself was a marvel of engineering, larger than most Zephyrian space cities, with environmental systems that somehow managed to accommodate both species simultaneously. Admiral Chen met them in person at the airlock. She was smaller than Elder Vexani had expected. Humans were generally compact compared to Zephyrians, but there was something about her presence that commanded immediate respect. Perhaps it was the confidence of someone who had never lost a battle. Perhaps it was simply the knowledge that she commanded enough firepower to sterilize planets. "Elder Vexani," Admiral Chen said with a slight bow. "Welcome aboard. I trust the accommodations are suitable? Quite adequate, Admiral. Though I confess surprise at your preparation for our species' environmental needs. We have been studying Zephyrian physiology for 2 centuries, Admiral Chen replied casually. Your people's expansion into the outer territories required us to understand your capabilities and limitations. She led them through corridors that seemed designed to impress, high ceilings, advanced technology displays, and viewing ports that showed the human fleet maintaining perfect formation around Kairos Prime. The negotiation chamber was circular, with seating arranged to accommodate both species. Admiral Chen took her position across from Elder Vexani, flanked by human advisors who had apparently materialized from nowhere. Before we begin, Admiral Chen said, I want to make humanity's position clear. We are not conquerors. We are survivors returning home. The Zephyrian Confederation has established mining operations and research stations in 23 systems that belong to humanity. We want those operations relocated outside human territory. That represents nearly 40% of our current industrial capacity. Counselor Yilshen protested. We understand the inconvenience, Admiral Chen replied sympathetically, which is why we are prepared to offer compensation. Humanity has access to resources and technologies that your species has not yet discovered. We can provide alternative mining locations and advanced equipment that will more than offset your losses. She activated a holographic display showing stellar charts that covered vast sections of the galaxy. Hundreds of systems were marked with various symbols. These are previously unknown resource deposits outside human territory, she explained. Rare elements, exotic matter, energy sources that your current technology cannot detect. Consider it a gesture of goodwill toward our future relationship. Elder Vexani studied the display with growing amazement. The resources shown represented centuries of prosperity for the Confederation. What do you want in return? Formal recognition of human sovereignty. Immediate withdrawal from human systems. Establishment of proper diplomatic channels. And your assistance in contacting other species who may have similar territorial issues. You want us to help you reclaim the entire galaxy? We want you to help us avoid unnecessary conflicts, Admiral Chen corrected. Peaceful species like the Zephyrians can be valuable allies. Aggressive species who refuse to acknowledge human territorial rights will be dealt with differently. The negotiations continued for 18 hours. By the end, Elder Vexani had signed agreements that fundamentally changed the balance of galactic power. The Zephyrian Confederation would withdraw from human territory within 1 standard year. In exchange, they would receive access to advanced technologies and resource deposits that would fuel their civilization for millennia. Most importantly, they would become humanity's first official ally in the new galactic order. As the Zephyrian delegation prepared to return to their homeworld, Admiral Chen made one final statement. Elder Vexani, your people believed humans were extinct mythology. You thought we were a cautionary tale about the dangers of aggression and environmental destruction. I want you to understand something important. Yes, Admiral, we did not destroy ourselves. We simply learned that sometimes the best way to win a war is to make your enemies forget you exist. Humanity went into strategic hibernation, not extinction. We spent 3,000 years becoming stronger, smarter, and more dangerous. Elder Vexani absorbed this information with growing unease. The galaxy is about to remember why humans were legends. Admiral Chen continued. Some species will adapt to our return peacefully, as you have done. Others will resist and discover that human military doctrine has advanced considerably during our absence. And what about the future? What role will humanity play in galactic civilization? Admiral Chen smiled, and for the first time, Elder Vexani saw something warm and genuinely friendly in the human's expression. That depends entirely on how other species choose to respond to our return. Humanity can be the galaxy's greatest ally, or its most terrible enemy. We prefer alliance, but we are prepared for either option. As the Zephyrian delegation departed, Elder Vexani looked back at the human fleet one final time. 47 warships that represented 1% of human military capacity. She tried to imagine what the full might of humanity would look like, and decided she was better off not knowing. The galaxy had entered a new age. Humanity was no longer a myth or a cautionary tale. They were the new dominant power. And every other species would have to find their place in the world that humans were building. The legends had been true after all. Humanity had never surrendered, never given up, never accepted defeat. They had simply been waiting for the right moment to remind the galaxy who they were. That moment had arrived,